History is full of great ideas. And then there are the ones that make you stop and go, yeah, were they okay? Today we're talking about fashion trends that were not just ugly, they could actually ruin your life. Like literally. Imagine wearing something that could drag you underwater, blind you, poison your skin, or turn your hair into an Airbnb for mice. And the best part, people did not just wear these, they were proud of them. This is no longer fashion, this is bad decisions. You can wear, and trust me, the very first one is already enough to make you lose faith in humanity. Story 1. The swimsuit, designed to drag you down. Imagine going for a swim on a hot summer day. Everything sounds perfect, until you step into the water and realize your outfit is doing the exact opposite of its job. It's pulling you down. Not because you can't swim, but because you're wearing a wool swimsuit. Yes, wool. The thing designed to keep you warm, not keep you afloat. And when wool meets water, it doesn't just get wet. It absorbs water like it just signed a long-term contract with the ocean. Within seconds, that light outfit turns into a heavy, soggy sack, dragging you down like you owe it money. At that point, swimming is no longer a fun activity, it's survival mode, hard difficulty. And when you finally try to get out of the water, you're basically bringing the entire pool with you. This is not swimwear. This is a disguised drowning device. And somehow, people really thought this was a great idea. Story 2. Lotus feet, paid for with broken bones. Imagine beauty, but the price is broken bones. Not once, not twice, basically your entire childhood. In old China, young girls had their feet bound from an early age, bones bent, toes folded under, tightly wrapped so they could never grow normally. Yeah, it already sounds painful. It gets worse. Walking wasn't really walking. It was enduring. Every step felt like moving on an injury that never healed. So why do it? Because small feet were seen as beautiful, elegant, high status. Translation, the more pain, the more perfect. And if you're thinking, okay, maybe it was just uncomfortable, no. This was a lifetime limitation, just to meet a beauty standard. You didn't walk, you survived. And if you think that's already extreme, just wait for what comes next. Story 3. The perfect smile. That used to belong to someone else. Ever wanted the perfect smile? White, straight, everything looks expensive kind of smile. Cool. Now add one small detail: it used to belong to someone else. In 19th century Europe, if you were rich and lost your teeth, you didn't get veneers. You bought real teeth from other people and the freshest supply battlefields. After fights, people would collect teeth from fallen soldiers, clean them, mount them onto dentures, and sell them to the wealthy. Yeah, take a second. That smile you're flexing at a fancy dinner, it had a whole different life before this, and nobody in the room knows. So it's not just borrowed style, it's borrowed teeth, full commitment. That smile, yeah, it's seen things. And trust me, we're still just getting started. Story 4. The dress that could turn you into a human torch. Imagine the outfit you're wearing, catching fire just because you stood a little too close to a candle. Sounds like a joke, right? Yeah. For women wearing crinolines in the 19th century, it was not. This was that giant hoop skirt look with a steel frame underneath, built to create the perfect, elegant lady silhouette. The problem? It was huge. Like ridiculously huge. And extremely flammable. All it took was brushing past a fireplace, an oil lamp, or one tiny spark. And suddenly the dress turned into a moving fire trap. And because the frame was so wide, getting out of it was almost impossible. Many women got trapped inside the very outfit they were wearing. Imagine putting on something that looks beautiful, but can end you in seconds. At that point, this is not fashion anymore. It is a dangerous decision wrapped in elegance. Fashion did not just make life uncomfortable, it literally killed people. And somehow, we still never seem to learn. Story 5. Beautiful eyes, at the cost of your vision. Imagine beauty, but you're literally gambling your eyesight for it. Sounds like a terrible deal, right? Yeah. Renaissance Italy said, let's do it anyway. Women used drops made from belladonna to dilate their pupils, giving that deep, mysterious, I have a complicated soul look. Sounds elegant, until you realize belladonna is poison. It made your eyes look more attractive, but also made your vision blurry, your focus worse, and over time, congrats, you're risking blindness. So yeah, you walk into a room looking stunning, and then walk straight into a wall. At that point, this is not beauty anymore. This is a high-stakes gamble with your own eyes. You might look incredible, as long as you don't actually need to see anything. Congratulations, you're prettier now. You just have no idea what you're looking at, and somehow, it still gets even dumber from here. Story 6. Perfect skin that's actively destroying itself. Imagine smooth, pale, flawless skin, but the price is your actual health. Sounds like a bad trade, right? Yeah. 16th century Europe said, let's just add another layer. Women used white makeup made from lead to get that noble look like they had never seen sunlight a day in their life. Sounds luxurious, until you realize lead does not just sit on your skin, it slowly destroys it. Skin starts breaking down, scarring, hair loss, and yeah, it does damage from the inside too. And here's the best part, the worse their skin got, the more they applied to cover it. A perfect loop of the prettier you try to be, the worse it gets. At that point, this is not beauty. This is self-destruction, with makeup on top. They were not glowing, they were slowly deteriorating. And somehow, fashion was about to get even weirder. Story 7. Hairstyles that turned into ecosystems. Imagine your hairstyle is not just hair, it's a full-on ecosystem. Sounds scientific, right? Yeah, it's actually kind of terrifying. In 18th century Europe, those massive wigs were styled using animal fat and coated with white powder to hold their shape. The problem, that mix didn't just hold the hair, it invited guests. The fat smell attracted insects, and in some cases, even mice moved in. Yes, your hairstyle could literally become a tiny apartment for wildlife. And since washing your hair was not exactly a regular habit, everything just kept building up over time. So picture this, you're at a fancy party looking elegant, high status, absolutely put together. While on your head, there might be a full survival documentary happening. At that point, this is not hairstyling. This is habitat construction. You don't just have a hairstyle, you have roommates. And somehow, it still gets even weirder from here. Story 8. Mascara. That turns you into a horror scene with one tear. Ever cried and had your mascara smudge a little? Yeah. Already a bad day. Now imagine that, times 100. Early mascaras were made from soot mixed with oil. Sounds simple enough. The problem? Zero waterproofing. Not slightly smudged, we're talking full meltdown. One tear, a bit of sweat, even humidity in the air, and your face turns into a black streak masterpiece sliding down your cheeks. You walk outside looking like you just filmed a horror scene, and nobody told you. At that point, this is not makeup. This is free special effects. One tear, and you're instantly the main character in a horror movie. And somehow, people looked at this and thought, yeah, we should probably go even bigger. Story 9. A hairstyle that could carry a whole fleet. Imagine carrying a ship on your head. Not metaphorically, an actual ship, masts, ropes, full detail like a miniature model. In 18th century France, high society women turned their hair into moving stages. They built wire frames stuffed in extra hair, coated everything with animal fat to hold the shape, then added decorations from flowers to literal warships to celebrate victories. Creative, sure. Safe, absolutely not. Because what you're really wearing is a tall, highly flammable construction project on your head. You don't walk into a room, you dock. And moving around, yeah, that's survival mode. You have to duck through doorways, fold yourself into carriages, and pray nobody walks by with a candle. At that point, this is not hairstyling. This is architecture, applied architecture. And honestly, just standing still with that thing on your head, that's already an achievement. Story 10. The shoes that made you rich, but took away your ability to walk. Imagine being wealthy. Means you literally can't walk on your own. Sounds ridiculous, right? Yeah, 16th century Venice said, sounds about right. Chopinist could reach nearly half a meter tall, turning you into a walking tower. The taller you were, the richer you looked. Seems fine, until you realize walking in them is basically impossible. You don't walk, you wobble like you're in a tightrope competition you never signed up for. And to avoid face planting, you need at least 2 people on each side holding you up, guiding every step. So a casual stroll, not anymore. That's now a full-on public performance. With free audience, imagine just wanting some fresh air and ending up praying you don't land on the ground. At that point, these are not shoes. This is survival mode disguised as fashion. You're not walking, you're being escorted. And trust me, this is still just the beginning. Story 11. The dress that turned walking into a mission impossible. Imagine putting on a beautiful dress and then realizing you can barely walk. Not a little inconvenient, we're talking full movement restriction. This was the hobble skirt, a design so tight around the legs that taking a normal step, not happening. Your only option, tiny. Awkward steps, like you're balancing an invisible cup of water on your head. Stairs become a challenge. Crossing the street becomes a survival mission. And if you're in a hurry, yeah, good luck with that. This dress basically turned the most basic human action into a stressful minigame. At that point, this is not fashion. This is a built-in speed limit. Walking is no longer optional. Struggling is mandatory. Fashion really said no long steps allowed. And somehow, it's about to get even more unsettling. Story 12. The wig that used to belong to someone else. Imagine putting on a luxurious wig and then realizing it used to belong to someone else. Not secondhand in a normal way, we're talking literally. In 17th, 18th century Europe, fashionable wigs were often made from real human hair. And the sources, yeah, a little unsettling. Hair from poor people selling it from prisoners getting it cut off, and sometimes from the deceased. Sounds creepy. At the time it was premium. You walk out looking like royalty, while on your head is basically a collection of multiple people's past lives. And the wild part, nobody saw a problem with it. At that point, this is not just beauty. This is recycling, with a slightly disturbing twist. That wig, yeah, it definitely had a backstory. And the previous owner not exactly asking for it back. And somehow, fashion still wasn't done yet. Story 13. The bra that turned you into 3D geometry. Imagine looking in the mirror and realizing your body now looks like a geometry problem. No soft curves, no natural shape, just sharp angles like someone designed you with a ruler. That was the bullet bra era of the 1940s-50s. With its cone-shaped cups and spiral stitching, this thing was not trying to be subtle. It was bold, aggressive, unavoidable. You didn't just walk into a room, your outfit announced itself before you even spoke. Confidence maybe. But also, you looked like you were hiding 2 traffic cones under your shirt. This wasn't about support anymore. This was about redesigning the human body into something oddly architectural. Subtlety gone. This was fashion screaming, look at me, right now. And somehow, it still gets weirder from here. Story 14. Head shape designed from childhood. Imagine being able to redesign your skull from the moment you're a baby. Not with 3D software, but with straps, boards, and constant pressure over years. In some ancient cultures, infants had their heads wrapped tightly to shape the skull into a desired form, often elongated or flattened, because it was seen as a sign of beauty and status. Sounds high class, until you realize this is permanent. No undo, no reset. Once it's shaped, that's it for life. And the wildest part, it all starts before you're even old enough to choose your own haircut, let alone your head shape. This isn't fashion anymore. This is human hardware modification, an aesthetic choice that lasts forever. And if you think that's already strange, just wait. Story 15. The hat that made you temporarily blind. Imagine wearing a super stylish hat, but in exchange, you can barely see what's in front of you. Sounds inconvenient, right? But in the 1920s, cloche hats were designed to fit tightly around the head and sit so low that they blocked most of your vision. Want to look straight ahead? Not happening. You had to tilt your chin up just to see like you were permanently posing, while having no idea where you were going, and stepping outside. Good luck because you could barely see oncoming traffic. Crossing the street wasn't simple anymore. It was a gamble. You weren't walking, you were predicting the future. Every step felt like playing on hard mode, without a map. This wasn't just an accessory. This was a real-life reaction test. You had style, but no vision. And somehow, things were about to get even weirder. Story 16. Veins painted on for beauty. Imagine doing your makeup every morning, and the final step is drawing veins onto your skin. Sounds confusing, right? But in the 18th century, some European women thought, yeah, why not? They used blue pencils to draw veins on their neck, chest, even their arms, all to create the illusion of pale, translucent, noble skin. The idea, you were so fair, people could see your veins underneath. Elegant in theory, but up close, it looked like you forgot to remove a very strange layer of makeup. This wasn't beauty anymore. This was circulatory system cosplay. You weren't just showing off your skin, you were flexing your veins. Subtle maybe, but the longer you look, the more something feels off. And somehow, fashion was still not done getting weirder. Story 17. The dress that turned your back into furniture. Imagine the back of your body, looking like a small shelf you could place things on, not because of extreme workouts, but because of fashion. That was the bustle. In the late 19th century, women added metal frames or padding under their dresses to create an exaggerated curve in the back. Sounds stylish until you realize you're basically carrying a structure behind you. Sitting down, complicated. Walking through doors requires strategy. Turning around, good luck. Everything behind you now has its own radius, and the shape flat and wide enough that you could probably place a teacup on it without spilling. This wasn't just clothing anymore. This was mobile furniture. You weren't just dressed, you were equipped. And yes, you could probably serve tea on it. And somehow, it only gets stranger from here. Story 18. Black teeth, beauty standards flipped upside down. Imagine stepping outside with a smile. Completely black. Not forgot to brush your teeth. Black intentionally painted glossy black. In old Japan, this practice called ohaguro was a symbol of beauty, maturity, and status. People used a mixture of iron vinegar and tannin to coat their teeth, reapplying it regularly like refreshing makeup. Sounds strange to us, but back then the darker your teeth, the more elegant you were considered. Meanwhile today, everyone is trying to get teeth as white as possible. Back then, white was seen as less attractive. This wasn't dental hygiene anymore. This was rewriting the rules entirely. You smiled, and the darker it was, the higher your status. White teeth. No thanks. Black was the goal. And somehow, things were about to make walking even worse. Story 19. The shoes. Extended for extra status. Imagine wearing shoes, but the front is stretched out like you bought an expansion pack for your feet. Not a design flaw, that was the trend. In medieval Europe, long-toed shoes, poutine, were a status symbol. The longer the tip, the more important you looked. Sounds fancy, until you try to walk. Every step becomes a mini balance game. The tip gets caught on stairs, tangled in clothes, or even hooks into your own stride. At max level, people literally tied the tips to their knees, just to avoid tripping. Yes, you had to tie your shoes to your legs to function like a normal human. And running. That's the fastest way to meet the ground. This wasn't footwear anymore. This was a personal obstacle you carried 24/7. You weren't just walking, you were avoiding traps, set by yourself. And somehow, eyebrows were next. Story 20. Eyebrows, it's borrowed from nature. Imagine looking in the mirror and realizing you don't have eyebrows. Not because you overplucked, but because it was the trend. In some periods, ultra-thin or nearly invisible brows were considered beautiful. The problem, if you don't have them, you have to create them. And the solution? Animal hair. Yes, people used fur from mice, martens, or other animals and glued it onto their faces to form new eyebrows. Creative, sure, but also slightly disturbing, because that brow used to belong to something else. And now, it's on your forehead. This wasn't makeup anymore. This was cross-species collaboration. You weren't just getting ready, you were borrowing from the ecosystem. From a distance, looks fine. Up close, a little suspicious. Nature helped, but maybe not like this. And somehow, things are about to get even more padded. Story 21. Muscles stuffed like furniture. Imagine stepping outside with a muscular body, but it's all padding. No gym, no protein shakes, just fabric, cotton, even sawdust stuffed into your clothes. In historical Europe, men used this trick to create a powerful silhouette, broad chest, rounded belly. From a distance, you looked like a warrior. Up close, more like a walking pillow. Sounds convenient, until you try to move. Bending down, awkward. Sitting, complicated. Breathing, negotiable. Everything is stiff, bulky, and completely uncooperative with your body. This isn't dressing anymore. This is furniture cosplay. You're not just wearing clothes, you're carrying padding everywhere. Confidence 100. Mobility 0. And somehow, even eating is about to become a challenge. Story 22. The collar that blocked you from eating. Imagine wearing an elegant outfit and realizing it's stopping you from eating. Not because you're sneaking snacks, but because of the collar. The ruff was a massive pleated collar, stiff like an overbaked cookie, wrapping around your neck and expanding outward like a satellite dish. It looked noble, until mealtime, because suddenly your hand couldn't reach your mouth without hitting it. Every meal turned into a physics problem: angles, distance, precision. And if you missed, congrats, you just fed your outfit. The solution: extra long forks and spoons, literal survival tools. This wasn't fashion anymore. This was an obstacle, worn around your neck. You weren't just eating, you were navigating. Utensils sold separately. And somehow, hats are about to get dangerously taller. Story 23. The hat, the taller, the bigger the problem. Imagine wearing a hat so tall that every doorway becomes a challenge. Not because the ceiling is low, but because your hat is too high. In 15th century Europe, noblewomen wore hennins, tall cone-shaped hats that stretched upward. The higher it was, the higher your status. Sounds impressive, literally, until you have to live with it all day. Getting into a carriage, you have to duck. Walking through doors, angle required. A light breeze. You turn into a walking antenna. And don't forget the long veil trailing behind, ready to get caught on anything within a 3-meter radius. This isn't an accessory anymore. This is a 3D spatial challenge. You're not just getting dressed, you're managing vertical architecture on your head. The taller it is, the more impressive and the more inconvenient. Doorways officially become your enemy. And somehow, even flirting is about to get complicated. Story 24. The face, Isiam, with built-in love codes. Imagine your face, not just for looks, but for sending secret signals. No texting, no talking, just placement. In 17th, 18th century Europe, tiny beauty patches weren't just for covering flaws, they were a whole coded language. Near the eye, passionate. On the cheek, taken. Near the lips, congratulations, you're available. Basically, an offline dating app, but way riskier. Because if you placed it wrong, you might accidentally send the wrong message. This wasn't makeup anymore. This was symbolic communication. You weren't just showing up, you were broadcasting your status to the entire room. Dating, but encrypted. And somehow, men are about to join the chaos too. Story 25. Calves, fake but confident. Imagine stepping outside with strong, well-defined calves, but you've never done leg day in your life. No problem, just pat it. In 18th, 19th century Europe, when tight-fitting pants made calves the center of attention, many men simply added muscle artificially. Padding made from fabric, wool, even wood was strapped to the legs to create that perfect shape. From a distance, flawless. Up close, let's just hope no one touches. Sounds convenient, until you realize walking becomes a bit stiff. This isn't improving your body anymore. This is special effects attached to your legs. No training needed, just install the upgrade. The muscles might be fake, but the confidence very real. Illusion complete. And somehow, nails are about to become a status symbol in a way no one expected. Story 26. Long nails, a symbol of doing nothing. Imagine growing your nails so long, you can barely use your hands. Sounds inconvenient, right? But in ancient China, that was the point. For the upper class, long nails were a way of saying, I don't do manual labor. The longer they were, the more it proved you lived comfortably enough to do nothing. Sounds elegant, until you try to pick something up, tie anything, or even scratch an itch. Everything becomes a high-level challenge. And to protect these art pieces, people even wore metal nail guards like armor for their fingers. This isn't nail care anymore. This is sacrificing function for image. You're not just growing nails, you're displaying status. Luxury, yes. Practical. Not even close. Function not included. And somehow, colors are about to get even more confusing. Story 27. Two-tone outfits, the more clashing the better. Imagine wearing an outfit where each side is a completely different color, not carefully coordinated, intentionally opposite. In medieval Europe, party-colored clothing was a way to show status and personality. One side red, the other blue. One leg yellow, the other purple. From a distance, eye-catching. Up close, like you lost a fashion bet. It sounds artistic until you realize matching colors is no longer part of the plan. This isn't mix and match anymore. This is clash and commit. You don't need harmony, you need confidence to carry the chaos. The result? An outfit that makes everyone stop just to figure out what they're looking at. Aesthetic debatable, chaos perfect, visual chaos achieved, and somehow, tools are about to become fashion. Story 28. The cane, full option combo. Imagine holding a cane, but inside it is basically a survival kit. Not just for walking, it could transform into a sword, a telescope, a flask, even fishing tools. In 18th, 19th century Europe, these multifunctional canes were a symbol of elegance and being ready for anything. Sounds convenient, until you realize you're carrying a toolbox disguised as fashion. Want to look refined? Pull out the telescope. Need self-defense sword ready? Want to relax? There's alcohol. This isn't just a cane anymore. This is pre-tech gadget energy. You're not just taking a walk, you're fully equipped like you're entering a game. One accessory, multiple functions, true all-in-one. Fashion, yes. Tools, also yes. Basically taunt a noble version of a Swiss Army knife. And somehow, beauty is about to get painful again. Story 29. The High Forehead, DIY Edition. Imagine looking in the mirror and thinking, my forehead isn't high enough. And the solution? Remove hair. Not a trim, but pushing your hairline back on purpose to create a wide, smooth, intelligent forehead. In medieval Europe, some women even plucked their eyebrows and eyelashes just to make the forehead stand out more. Sounds extreme? Because it was. Back then, the higher the forehead, the more noble you looked. The result? A very calm appearance, almost slightly alien. And if you messed up, congratulations, no undo button. This isn't beauty anymore. This is manual face editing. You're not just changing your hairstyle, you're upgrading your forehead. Bold, definitely. Reversible, not at all. And somehow, men are about to take things even further. Story 30. Corsets for men, slim waist, no air. Imagine wearing an outfit that makes you look sharper, but also makes breathing optional. Sounds like torture, right? But in the 19th century, some fashionable men, especially dandies, thought, yeah, worth it. They wore corsets to cinch their waists, expand the chest, and keep a perfectly straight posture. From the outside, elegant. On the inside, like being hugged by a metal belt, 24/7. Sitting down, difficult. Bending, almost impossible. Taking a deep breath, not happening. You want to look refined. Pay with oxygen. This isn't dressing anymore, this is compressing your body to fit a beauty standard. You're not just wearing clothes, you're forcing yourself into a mold. Tighten it too much, congrats, you just unlocked dizziness for free. Style, yes, air limited. And finally, things reach a whole new level of dangerous. Story 31. Hair, one spark away from disaster. Imagine your hairstyle, basically being a walking fire hazard. Sounds exaggerated, not really. In the 18th century, towering hairstyles were built with frames coated in animal fat and dusted with powder, which means highly flammable. And this was an era full of candles and open flames. So yes, you were essentially carrying a fuse on your head. All it took was one spark, one wrong move, one bad angle, and everything could be over in seconds. This isn't beauty anymore. This is gambling with fire. You're not just entering a room, you're bringing risk with you. A hairstyle that's tall, impressive, and extremely dangerous. One spark, and it's game over. And somehow, people still loved it like nothing could go wrong. After everything you've just seen, the real question is not which trend was the dumbest. It's how many of these people once looked at and said, yeah, this makes perfect sense. Let's do it. Be honest. Which one made you go, no way, this was real? And don't pick the funniest one. Pick the one that made you slightly uncomfortable. Because part of you thought, okay, maybe not that bad. Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know what your brain is doing right now. Hit like if you just lost a little more faith in humanity. And don't forget to subscribe, because trust me, history is still full of moments where logic just quits.